Rob, to get us started, give me two truths and a lie, please.
I'm 6'1". I weigh 217 pounds, and I love to swim.
Okay. Well, those are excellent. I have no idea how tall you are. I can sort of try to gauge your weight, but it's hard not knowing how tall you are. And you love to swim. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Rob Haney, I do not think that you love to swim.
You are correct.
Ah, yes. Do
So,
you hate swimming?
lifeguard for lifeguard for 10 years, and I did everything I could to avoid being in that water in the ocean. Sure. I can swim, but I don't like it.
And were you lifeguarding in back east or you in
Yes.
down south?
No, in New Jersey, it was my high school and college job, and then I went into the real world. And back then, one of the funny things was the beach director at the time said, you're going to go out there one day and realize how good you had it when you're sitting in your office and you're plowing through work and realize all you had to do was go down, work out a little bit, sit in the sun, occasionally go in the water and go home and collect a paycheck. We didn't get into how much the paycheck was, but at the time couldn't have been more accurate if he tried.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a bad deal right there. The life of a lifeguard. All perfect except, yeah, who knows? Well, maybe you can do that in retirement, Rob.
You never know, right?
Life is a funny thing. All right, I like it. Well, what is top of mind for you right now?
How do I do a better job of making people aware that they own their life insurance policy, like they own their home, and that they can sell it and use that money for that sale while they are still alive. So in essence, putting life back into life insurance. I've been doing this a long time, and every day I get up and think, how can I reinvent the wheel in terms of marketing? Certainly, what we do, the product stays the same, but just who can benefit, and how do I get that message out? And I'll be honest with you, George, you can understand this. Sometimes it sounds too good to be true. People think like, wait a minute, you're going to give me money for my life insurance today, more than the cash surrender value? And the answer is, if you qualify, yes. So it's dependent upon the type of life expectancy one believes you have, and then the cost of the insurance for the potential investor. But absolutely, we do it every day, every week, every month, every year, and have been for 31 years.
So try to say the same thing in a slightly different way.
That's right. Just to make them, again, sometimes it sounds too good to be true. But just to put things in perspective, life insurance is a very much in play in the United States of America. Every year, we've backed into the ACLI fact book, so we've kind of gone into some numbers of the insurance carriers that they produce. And every year, we estimate roughly $112 billion of death benefit for people over the age of 65 living in the United States of America will either lapse that life insurance policy or they will surrender it for the cash surrender value. We as a marketplace, the entirety of our industry last year bought about 5 billion. That's on top of the 112. So when you talk about market potential, I don't think you're going to get a better illustration in the financial services sector than that. There's just so many people that just don't know. Life insurance is sold to people when they're younger. They go through their life as they get older, more or less in their 65, 70s, I mentioned earlier. The agent that sold them the life insurance policy is no longer in the insurance business. They don't have an agent. They're orphaned. So there's nobody's advising them as to what they should do. So if my advertisement on TV comes across or they see something on the internet or in a magazine, they think, wait a minute, that sounds too good to be true. And that's really, and therein lies the problem. So I try and simplify it as best I can, but it's just getting that audience.
Well, those are compelling numbers right there. Each year, $112 billion of the death benefit face amount
Correct.
lapse or goes away. Either people stop
Mhm.
paying on it, it lapses, or they just surrender it and take whatever cash is there.
Correct.
And while not all of that 112 billion is probably going to fall into the this is something that is saleable or I could sell this,
That's right.
a pretty good chunk is more than
I would
five.
say, yeah, I always tell people, say, this just sound, again, that sounds too good to be true. I say, okay, let's just make it, let's say it's 20 billion. Well, we're only doing five. So if we were to get all that 20, that would be, we'd increase our business five times. So four times is larger. So the potential's there. The capital that likes to buy these life insurance policies is institutional capital. They look at this, they look at this as an alternative asset, and the reason they love it and want to buy more of it is because it's uncorrelated. Meaning, if the insurance, excuse me, the financial markets go down drastically, which has happened from time to time, and it takes a long time for those corrections to sort themselves out. The life expectancy on the client that they bought stays the same. The death benefit stays the same. The premiums that they're going to pay stay the same. So that part of their investment class is basically without turmoil, and they like it. Problem is, we're not getting enough policies for them to buy. So, with it's a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. You want to be in a business where there's opportunity that you're not taking advantage of, but the pressure's there. So the more that I can get on with folks like yourself and talk about this, the better it reaches people to understand, like, hey, we call it a free non-binding appraisal. So we don't want people to think because we go through this exercise and we get you an offer that even surpasses your expectations, you under no obligation to take it. It's just like any other big ticket item you have that you get appraised from a professional, your home, your boat, your jewelry, etc. Those people come in and give professional appraisal. They tell you exactly what it's worth. You now know that in case you want to sell it, but they're not doing it for free. There's a charge associated with that. Ours, there isn't. Now we will make a commission. I want to alert your listeners that we will make a commission, but it's going to be fully disclosed, unlike when you buy life insurance, where you have no idea how much anybody made throughout the entire transaction. In this case, the exact amount of money that'll be paid in commission will be disclosed in the contract.
Nice. So these institutional capital players that are purchasing existing life insurance policies, are these companies that people are familiar with?
It depends. I mean, if you read the financial papers, probably, but generally speaking, no. They're pension funds, for example, European pension funds. That's why the life expectancies have gone out further. So we talk about people 65 years old. They're not necessarily old. They're not necessarily sick, but they have a life insurance policy. It might be a term policy that's coming up against its end of its term period and would now have to be converted to a permanent product. That would allow them to take advantage of that commission that's earned on the sale of that new policy and use that to manufacture an offer. So if someone gets an offer, I'll make it up, $1 million policy, and they're very healthy, but the premiums make sense, including the conversion illustration, that this is a policy that a pension fund might like. They may offer the client $10,000, and everybody says, well, who's going to take $10,000 for a life insurance policy that's worth $1 million? And I say the guy who's going to lapse it for zero. That's who's going to take it. Now that's not all people getting $10,000. That's just an extreme example, but they can go up to 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. I'm on the board of directors of LISA, which is the Life Insurance Settlement Association. And we back into numbers again through our data collection. We've done 3 years now, headed to our fourth, where we survey all the provider companies that buy policies and have to report them to the states. What was the death benefit they bought? What was the cash surrender value? What was the settlement amount over that? And how many policies did they buy in total in that given year? And every year we come back with somewhere between 5.2 to 7.8 times more than cash surrender value on average when you sell your policy. So just take the lower end of that. You're going to get 5 times more. So we tell people all the time, it's worth the exercise. You definitely want to know that. Now we have, George, we have people that come up and say, okay, I didn't know I was going to get that much money. I've now made the policy more valuable to them. They keep it. That's fine. It's their choice. But at least they know now. Now they also know they're going to bed at night knowing they're sitting on X number of dollars should they decide to sell at some future date. That may even improve as they get older. But that's what we want people to understand. If you're going to go out and say, okay, what are my total assets? What do I own? What's my net worth? No one calculates life insurance. Nobody. They think most of the CPAs list is an expense. So this is a chance for people to realize that it's just like their home. It's an asset they own. They can sell it no different than they could sell their home. So that's the great part about this business is sometimes it opens people's eyes to what they have. Also, when we talk to financial planners and also insurance agents, we sometimes say to them, I realize you're dealing with this client that you've had for 20 years, but have you ever asked the client how much life insurance they own in total? Because what do you mean? I said, how much do they own? Have you ever asked them? And they'll be like, I guess I haven't. And they'll find out they own another 500,000, 250,000, $1 million that they bought before they ever had a relationship with them. And I said, two things you should do there. Number one, you should go back and get yourself put as the agent of record on all of that. So you're in control of everything. You'll know when lapse notices come, et cetera. So you can advise your client. And then more importantly, you can look at the total amount of life insurance and realize the client maybe have $2 million too much. And then we sell the least cost effective policies in our marketplace. And now they're turn around, take that money that they were spending for life insurance and repurpose that, maybe buy an annuity or pad their long-term care account, whatever they need going forward.
Sounds like a no-brainer, Rob.
Well, you think I wish they were all like you, George.
It all makes perfect sense to me. Are there any other insurance products that are assets like this?
No, no.
Maybe that's part of the problem.
Well, it's yeah, it is it's you just don't think about it, but when you think about it, we really boil it down to it. When you buy a life insurance policy, other than being the owner and the insured, what's the next thing you get to do? You get to pick the beneficiary. And beneficiaries can be your wife, your spouse, whomever. They can be a philanthropic organization, can be beneficiary of the policy. So they're out there. So we work with business owners, we work with philanthropic organizations. A lot of times they'll gift a policy to quote unquote an orchestra somewhere in the middle of the country. And then they'll say, okay, I don't have any money to pay the premiums. Well, at that point, what do you think they're going to do? They're letting it go. And they probably bled the premiums down anyway to keep it, to make it less expensive. So it goes to lapse. We say, wait, before we do that, let's go find out if somebody will pay more money. Unique thing about happens there is it's a 501c3. So there's no taxes coming to the beneficiary. And then the client, if he or she or both in some cases are alive, they get the tax write-off as a benefit while they're alive for the gift. So that's becoming more and more popular. But again, you've got to be like everybody's got to know that it's there. They're going to be thinking about what happens if this shows up, and it takes a while. But we have lots of organizations we work with that are almost calling us, 2 or 3 times a year. This is not something that's going to happen every week. I can't imagine. So, but when it does, you just need to know what to be looking for. That's why we just try and stay on top of people and understand here's a new change, here's something that's happened that's new in the industry. But to your point, unfortunately, there aren't other products like this, but fortunately, there's this one.
Totally. All right. So let's go through an example that we have this institutional capital. It's a company. It's assumed that it is a pension fund, and they're looking to make investments. They have money. They like life settlements because it is non-correlated, so it's not tied to the stock exchange or anything like that. It's sort of its own asset class. And client, let's just say it's me. I am 65 years old. I've got this insurance policy. It's a whole life policy. I'm independently wealthy, so I have no reason to keep this policy, and I'm just going to cancel it and take the cash value. And I hear about this because I had you on my podcast, and I say, oh, let's explore this. I make the decision that I'm going to sell this policy to that pension fund, and just correct me where I'm wrong. They then assume the ownership of the policy, which gives them they have to pay the premiums on it. They get to designate the beneficiary, but I, as the insured, remain the insured. I no longer have any rights in the policy. I've exchanged that for the money that they've paid me to buy it.
That is absolutely correct. You're a fast study. So everyone signs off. To make even one little additional level, that beneficiary we spoke of earlier, that beneficiary will sign off. The beneficiary is going to be made aware that you're selling your policy and they're no longer to be receiving the death benefit. And at that point, if there's any hesitancy, we may say, no, doesn't mean that, hey, he has to sell, but you then should be making, he's not making the premiums, so you're going to need to make those premiums. And of course, once you show them the premiums, they're all for the sale. And that's just a family decision that's made. But yes, everybody's made aware. And you make it very simple. You would take the money and you would go on with the rest of your life, and they would be responsible for the premiums. And they would take full, complete ownership. They'd make themselves the irrevocable beneficiary, and they make an absolute assignment to an entity that might be a fund, derivative, et cetera. So yes, That's what would happen.
Got it. And they are running the numbers and they recognize that let's say that my premium is $12,000 a year, the death benefit's $1 million. And they say, well, this is, it's a whole life policy, which means it's never going to go away. We have to pay the premium until George dies, but we've made the decision that we are going to long term make a profit off of this deal.
And they'll factor in like most people are the target is somewhere between 12 to 14% IRR, if that makes any sense to you. I'm sure it does. But give you an idea, they're not just buying your policy, right? So if you and I were trying to buy the one policy, we'd pick John Davis. We don't like the fact that he smokes and he doesn't really work out. And we'd say he's going to die in 7 years. That's what the life expectancies are telling us. So we'd buy that one policy. Well, he'll live to be 117. That's just the way it'll work because we bought the one deal. They're buying hundreds, if not thousands, and you get that, what does I call that nice bell curve? Somebody's going to supposed to live 12 years. He or she's going to pass away in the first year, just because that's how it works. Unfortunately for her, for him, that's how it works. Additionally, on the flip side, that's individual that's all the way over here at the end of that bell curve. He was supposed to die in 12 years. Well, he decided to live 24. But when you add it all together, you get that nice mix of early maturities, later maturities, and the majority of them coming in when they're supposed to. So that's why the marketplace works. And again, to my point is that, we talked about earlier, is there's not enough policies to really satisfy, quote unquote, the appetite, if you will, of the financial markets. But as a seller, that's great news because they want to buy your policy. So we try and create, my company tries to create a bidding war. I go out to all the different buyers and are showing the same policy and trying to get the offers driven up, almost like a mini auction. But I don't time the auction. I think that's unfair to the seller because if there's people that need another day to get an extra $35,000, we're going to give them the extra day. The
Sure.
client could tell us, I have up until such and such a date. That's fine. But we're not going to share that with anybody other than the people that need to know. So we'll try and create that bidding process. Start to finish these transactions from you making the initial call, filling an application to getting your money could be as long as 90 days. Most of them kind of fit into the 60 to 75 range. You're dealing with a lot of outside different entities such as doctors' offices, medical records, and insurance companies. And none of those three people act fast under any circumstances for any reason. So in case it gets a little long, we may make a phone call to the client and have the client or the client's representative call the doctor and kind of push those things along.
It is, I don't know what the term is, sort of morbid to think
Mhm.
about this. And I imagine that that's maybe part of why it's not as popular, but I'm wrong a lot. I'd also imagine that somebody hearing this for the first time is like, well, I don't want somebody else betting that I'm going to die soon. So what do you think about those things?
So the first thing I thought of in 1993 when someone told me about this business is I literally drove home and in my speaking to myself in my own head, I said, this is the most ghoulish thing I've ever heard of in my life. Never heard of anything cool. And back then, it was predominantly the viatical industry, so people were dealing with terminal or chronic illnesses most of the time. Um, and I think about, but then I quickly realized we're keeping insurance companies honest, so I quickly changed my tune by the next traffic light. Literally, I figured it out that quickly. As far as someone else betting on your life, no different than buying an annuity. So if you're not comfortable with someone betting your life, then the annuity market would end tomorrow. That's what it's all about. So the folks of, like I said, 31 years, um, we said that people will knock you off, so to speak, for your life insurance benefits. Clumsy and obvious to solve. Barney Fife comes to mind in Mayberry. He's going to figure this out by lunch, right? He's going to say, okay, such and such trade your life insurance policy. He's died today. So it's never happened, right? That's the unique thing. Now, people always say, well, it could. I said, absolutely. But I will tell you this much, and this is also ghoulish or morbid. Most people that are killed for the life insurance are killed by their family members. Nothing to do with us. And they get caught. You can find them out all the time. They literally get caught. So it's not smart. It's not wise. And it's a great question. And certainly, if you can't get your head comfortable with the idea of a third party owning your life insurance policy, then by all means, this is not for you. But what I always tell people, I said, but let me show you the bottom line of a particular life insurance company. I show you that they're just going to keep the money, literally all of it that you gave them, and never pay another dime for it. That's turned a few people around because they start to realize like there's rotten life insurance companies, and they're not rotten. It's just the way that it works out. Statistically speaking, 90%, I mean, just make it 90, it's a little higher. 90% of every life insurance policy ever issued has never gone to claim. 90.
Isn't term
So
like 99%?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So most of that, if you think about it, George, is very simple. Group life insurance policy for people leaving college, getting their first job. They get a package, benefit package. In that package is $25,000 life insurance policy. They get their next job 2 years later. That policy goes away. They get a new policy. And this goes on and on and on until they get to be mature enough, married, and decide on their own they're going to get life insurance, mortgage protection, etc. So that's why most that big the number is as big as it is. But here's another thing, going back to the early days, people didn't know when you owned a policy through your work. In some cases, they're large. They do not know you can take it with them. They have no idea you can convert that policy. People just let those go all the time. Maybe because if they're too young and they're expensive, I can get it. But when people really retire and they have the life insurance policy, they don't know to take it. My mother knew to take it because I was in the business. I told her to take it. My dad as well. They were both school teachers. Otherwise, they'd have let it go. Wasn't big enough, but $25,000 is $25,000, and they paid for it for years, decades.
Hmm.
So really, we're kind of like educators. Is really kind of what I feel like we do most of the time. Um, and then we try and make the idea or the diagram come to life in forms of an offer at the end of the rainbow, and say, okay, here's what so and so is going to give you. And in some cases, it's life changing. I mean, people go from having a policy, larger policy, we'll say 500 to $1 million, have a lot of health issues, and just don't know what to do. Find us through either dumb luck or through an advisor, and we turn around and hand them a couple $100,000, and it literally changes their life. I mean, not forever, but certainly for the time being. And that's what's great about it, is that's where the market's coming. So if you've goofed around lately and been on any of the cable news channels, you'll see ads running from two groups that I work with, Abacus, Abacus Pays, and Coventry, which is Coventry Direct. They run ads, and they're all good friends of mine. And I'll just say this out loud in case they hear it. But the phone will ring and say, "Hey, I just saw your commercial." And of course, I'll say, "Great." And we go on with the rest of the pitch. But it's all about education, because at the end of the day, I'm going to take that same policy. It's going to go back to those same places as well. And they're going to be involved in the bidding war. So the more noise we can make, consistent noise, I should say, education, people realizing that they own their life insurance policy, they have the right to sell it, they have the right to keep it also. Another quick example is the market changes. So we say, okay, what else can you do? So we can split policies in half. So if you want life insurance and you want to pay for it, you can maybe say it's 500 and sell 250 and keep 250. So that makes your premiums much less expensive, and you use some of the proceeds from the sale to help offset that cost. Or there's what's called another really popular way to go is retained death benefit. So it says, what's that? It says let's take that $500,000 life insurance policy again. They want life insurance, but they just can't afford it. But they need it. And there's no way they can take the money and turn around and go buy life insurance, because they're not going to qualify. And if they did qualify, it'd be so expensive. So what somebody will say is, okay, Mrs. Smith, we're going to give you 5 grand to consummate a life settlement transaction. You're going to get $5,000, and we're going to give you $100,000 of retained death benefit. So they go record it at the insurance carrier for 20% of the life insurance proceeds. When she passes away, her named beneficiary and or her estate will get the $100,000 that they need but can't afford to pay. That's become real popular. So it's basically like having life insurance and not paying for it.
So that's just part of the deal that is
Yes.
made in the
Hmm.
transaction. So you say, yes, this is, let's just assume that the value of that was $10,000. You're going to get 5 grand, and we're going to hold on to this other five, and that's going to pay the premium. But you don't need to know that. But that's sort
No,
of,
exactly. Well, they're gonna they have factored that in. They realize again that bell curve I talked about. They're just trying to get as many policies into the fund as possible. Another good friend of mine, Jose Garcia, sold his company Carlyle to Abacus. They're based out of Luxembourg. They were a fund that had a multitude of funds throughout the industry. That's where I became aware of the investment pedigree that was the European investors, which are the pension funds. So when I talk about people that have been around a long time and conservative, I mean, they're not just buying Bitcoin. They're like they'll take them another 10 years to buy Bitcoin. They're buying things that they know are solid. And one of the things that they look to as one of the most solid bets in the financial services sector is the strength of the life insurance companies that they're buying the policies on. These companies have been around a long time and they always pay a death claim. In some cases, they pay dividends. These are powerful companies. They like owning that asset. It's stable, and the asset, the way it performs, is pretty predictable as well.
It all makes sense, Rob. I like it. You've given us a lot, but we're ready for that difference making tip. What do you have for us, sir?
Well, reading up on you, I think it's the same thing I'm going to tell everybody. The difference making tip is nothing ventured, nothing gained. You have to try. If somebody tells you no, that's fine. But be nice about it. Thank them for their time, but always give it that extra 15 seconds of effort because you just never know if the time is right.
Well, I think that is great stuff. That definitely gets it. Come on. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Give it a shot. Get on the phone, talk to Rob, find out if you have a policy that is a candidate for what we've been talking about. Thanks so much for coming on, Rob. Tell us a
My
little bit
pleasure.
about
Thank
how
you.
people can do that, how people can get in touch with you.
Sure. My Rob Haynie, Haynie, and my cell phone number is 954-599-4433. And my email is rob@lisettlements.com.
What's the website?
www.lisettlements.com.
Perfect. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Rob your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to lisettlements.com. Check out everything we've been talking about. Give Rob a call, shoot him an email, and just have that conversation. Find out if you, in fact, have an asset that could put some money into your pocket. And certainly do not be like those 112 billion. It's not 112 billion people,
No,
but you get the idea. Find out if what you have is of value instead of just canceling the thing. Thanks again, Rob.
pleasure, George. Thank you.
Finally, friendly reminder, there's never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are, so act accordingly.